Hello, listeners. Welcome to episode 4 of Are You Ready to Ruck? Hello again. My name is Kevin Borras. This is indeed episode 4 of our series of mini podcasts called Are You Ready to Ruck? The RUC is RUC, that stands for Road User Charging. And these podcasts there's 12 of them. And in each episode, I speak to a different member of the SPRUCE network. And SPRUCE stands for Specialists Providing Road User Charging Expertise. So if you're talking about European road user charging expertise, it would be impossible to go any further in this series without speaking to my next guest. I've been joined by Willem Tierolf. Hi, Willem. How are you doing?
Well, fine. Thank you, Kevin. I'm fine. As you know, I am working from the Netherlands, The Hague. And actually, I'm retired since a couple of years, but retired is formally from a formal job. But still part-time, I do the odd advice, consultancy, etc. when I'm asked by mainly ministries or governments or the European Commission. And that way I still keep occupied because it's a very nice subject, a very nice world also, the people you meet there. And well, that's how I fare today.
Well, it's great that you have come out of retirement to be part of the Spruce partnership, the Spruce network. So for anyone unfamiliar with Spruce, it's a partnership of road user charging experts. And everyone brings something different to the table or party, whichever you prefer. What's your USP? What do you bring that other people don't? And maybe as part of that answer, you could also talk about some of the prominent road user charging projects that you've worked on. You and I met first, I think, in 1999. So we've known each other a long time. And you were then when I started in this industry, you were one of the people that I was told to go and speak to, because if I couldn't learn anything from speaking to you, then I would never learn anything. So, and here we are, 2024, still learning.
Well, that's what some people say you should learn through your lifetime. And definitely this is one of the subjects where that's possible. Maybe it's good that I give just a little bit of an introduction of how I came there.
Yeah, please do.
Well, I had some jobs in the private sector and even in space research at a research leader and later on as a commercial manager there. When I joined in 1990, the National Road Authority in the Netherlands, the Rijkswaterstaat. And I've worked there the rest of my formal working life, doing jobs for the Road Authority themselves and also for the ministry, because very soon I got entangled in Brussels. I thought it very interesting to do international jobs and having international contacts. So I did a lot of European legislation as well for the ministry and things like that. First, I entered as the IT strategist for the Road Authority.
All right.
And then I became the coordinator for intelligent transport systems. And in that capacity, I also was involved in a load of Dutch national road user charging projects, which started about 1990 and are running until today. Unfortunately, they all were scuttled when there were new elections, because it is politically a very sensitive issue and you can easily lose votes on it. So I'll come back on that later. I worked on ITS, as I said. I was leading the European ITS framework architecture. I started the DATEX steering committee in the 1990s and worked a lot as in steering committees for the trans-European networks, things like that. But in the meantime, I also got entangled more and more in tolling and later on road user charging. And in that capacity, I was involved in some capacity in the Dutch projects, 5, if I count it well, till today, which, like I said, were scuttled when there were new elections all the time. And I also found out in 2001, it was, that the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, and UK all together were starting and planning national road user charging schemes.
Yeah.
3 of them for trucks only, but the Netherlands would go all out also for light vehicles, and that caused, of course, the political problems at the elections. So when I talked with a few colleagues, like Eric Sampson from UK and a German director and some people from Austria, I said, well, it will not be very good for the transport sector if we just have other pylon silos, national silos. And how can we cooperate in a sense that it becomes more interoperable, so that it becomes more of a fluent line of European systems, which are not too different. And well, they all agreed that was a good idea, but difficult to realize because they were bound to national processes and procedures and interests. And then I founded a Stockholm group in 2002, of course in Stockholm, hence the name. And there we decided that we would have regular meetings as authorities and ministries in an informal way, just between the formal political level and the legislation level and the research and practical projects level. And well, Stockholm Group has bloomed, I would say, still exists today. We now meet about 3 times a year. Since COVID, a number of those meetings are just online, but at least once a year we meet in person. And there we exchange what's going on in the member states, and we also discuss common items and issues. And in the past, we also had a number of special activities to address special problems like new European legislation, like the availability of spectrum, like the 5.8 gigahertz, which was being taken over for Wi-Fi purposes, etc. And while doing so, we also got in touch with CIDR, the European Conference of Road Directors, which were interested in tolling. So we had a working relationship with them, and also with ASACAP, when in 2003 already the Secretary General ASACAP asked me if we could work together a bit regarding European legislation, and so we did. And actually, just to underline that Stockholm Group really was of influence in 2015 when there was talk about revision of European legislation on the subject of EETS, European Interoperable Electronic Tolling System. We had one of our meetings in Dublin, and we decided to extend it with 2 days workshop to define the strategy regarding the European Commission and legislation. And we came up with 5 points, I remember, which should change in the old legislation, either be taken out or being added. And with that message went to the European Commission. And well, in the end, when the proposal came, all those 5 points were covered. And then, of course, you have the formal bodies which go over it and change a little bit. But in the end, well, those 5 points, they stood and they became the new legislation from 2019. And still, we have a very good relationship with the European Commission, who has a standing invitation to our meetings. So that is one of the bodies which was, I would say, instrumental in European policies, legislation, and still is. So those are a few of the items which have helped progress tolling, and in particular road user charging types of tolling in Europe, and still are active in that field.
Yeah.
Well, you had another question as well. That was, I forgot.
You've pretty much covered both. But what it was the idea of what do you bring to the table? I hate that phrase, bringing things to a party or a table, but you have your own specialist knowledge of the road user charging sector that your involvement in Spruce will bring that out. What's your specialist knowledge
Well,
in that sense?
yes. It reflects what I already
Yeah.
said. Of course, that I have broad knowledge of European legislation and policies and what's going on there. Good contacts with almost all member states, and also experience of 30 years of national Dutch projects, but also being asked through the ages by other countries to advise on their plans and strategies. And the most recent one was in 22 when Norway had a parliamentary decision that they should introduce road user charging
Mm.
all over the place for all vehicles and all purposes. Well, a little bit ambitious, but anyway, they asked me in their KVU study to look how to do it for an analysis, risk analysis, and some recommendations. And in a couple of weeks, months, I think, with the help of the Ministry of Finance there and the National Road Authority of Norway, I put together a report with an analysis of the situation and introduction strategies. Because at the moment, RUC is becoming very more ticking on knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Because of a huge problem of electric vehicles. Well, electric vehicles themselves, of course, are not a problem, but the fact that in most cases in most countries they don't pay fuel tax without any replacement is becoming a problem.
Yeah.
And I do recall, for instance, a report from the UK House Committee on Transport, 21, I think it was, where they said, well, we should act, and if not, in a couple of years, well, that may be 10 or 15 years, we are losing out of the 25 billion pounds we receive now on the fuel tax. So what should we invent to cover that gap? And that's the same issue that's going on everywhere.
Yeah.
So one of the issues in Norway as well, who have the highest rate of electric vehicles already, and for new vehicles, I think the sales is over 80% of all new vehicles are electric, full electric in Norway.
Mm.
So it's becoming quite urgent for them. So that played a large part in the advice. So having experience in all those areas and also quite good connections in those areas and levels, that's what I bring to the table. And of course, the experience of the Dutch products, but also the products advised in other countries on the strategy and what are the important things, what to do, what not to do,
Yeah.
how to time it. Timing also is a very important issue. If you don't time it right, then you have a lot of
Yes.
problems. If you time it right, then it can go easily. Like, for instance, again, the Norwegian example. Once you don't have a large contingent of electric vehicles yet, so it's not a majority, then you have the public perception that, well, those people don't pay taxes and we do. Well, same argument in Oregon and America, for instance. So at that point, it is politically easier to start charging them. If you do it too early, then you stop the rise of electric vehicles, the growth of electric vehicles. If you do it too late, then it's become a majority, and then you get political opposition again. So you have to do it at the right time if you want to have a smoother ride, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And well, considerations like that.
Well, it's strange that you mentioned electric vehicles. It was just announced a few days ago that electric vehicles will now have to pay the London congestion charge from December 2025. So that's how London
Mhm.
is attacking that. Now, I'm thinking about road user charging projects. And the first one I remember working on in terms of media was Reikening-Ryden, which was in what 98, 99?
It was the second or third project we had, so it could be, yeah, 98, 99.
Yeah.
98, I was interim manager there when things were not going right for a couple of months to get it on the rails again. But that must have been that year.
Yeah, because that there's yeah, because it's basically bill driving or charge driving, wasn't it? You're being charged for driving. Reckoning is the bill, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it some kind of a kilometer charging. It was yeah.
Because then was there not? Hang on, the other two come to mind. Was kilometer heffing,
Yeah, that's
and then
correct.
Spitztreif. That was the third one?
Um, yes, well, I forgot a bit because they interchanged at a quick pace in those
They
days
did.
around 2000. It was mileage-based charging. It was a cordon charge around the big cities.
Oh, you
It was
called and charge. Yes, of course.
congestion charge, and for political reasons, it changed all the time. And that was a huge problem because then easily it could be scuttled by the opposition once election
Yeah,
time was done and everyone had to leave it.
long happy days. Reminiscing. Not the
Yes.
point of this podcast, but anyway. So I think I've asked this of the other three members, and I will ask it of the remaining eight. That road user charging is based on fairness because you pay for the roads that you use. So it should be
Mhm.
a simple idea to sell. But what do you consider to be, let's say, the top three factors to consider based on your experience working in this sector? If you are an authority, national government, local government, and you have plans to implement a road user charging scheme, what are the three things you have to consider?
Well, first of all, there's a huge difference between introducing road use charging for heavy goods vehicles or for light vehicles. For heavy goods vehicles, the political aspect is less prominent. It's not absent, but it's less prominent.
Yeah.
But if you do it for light vehicles, and that is something that is coming over the horizon these days, then absolutely important is that how to sell it, how to get political and user acceptance.
Yes.
And you cannot just have present facts, but you need to have a story. And you need to keep that story afloat with all the opposition from the opposition press and the opposition politics, etc. You also have to see that you have the right timing in your selling it and in implementing it. So that is the most important thing. So it is communication and it is finding a right strategy. And in defining a right strategy, you better stick to one main item, one main reason, because the moment you change your motivation from, for instance, tax collection to becoming green, then you're very vulnerable for political attacks, and then usually you go down again at elections. And
Yeah.
actually, in 2004, when my minister asked me what to do, because we were had been silent for 2.5 years after the last project, and because Parliament was asking her to do something about the major congestion in the west of the country, so she was thinking of road user charging again. Then she said, "Well, the first thing I will do is try to build consensus." And the second one is that I'll try to plan it in that way that we can take irreversible decisions in one term of government. And well, that seemed to work very well because we had independent, well-known guy in the Netherlands who chaired some kind of a meeting, tables, etc., with all sectors of society present there. And they came to a common understanding, and the common understanding was based also on all kind of economic and social societal models, etc., and what effects there would be, that we could introduce some kind of a road user charging. So once that political agreement across the board had been achieved, then the planning was that the next government took decisions so that by the end of the government term, 4 years later, the final decision for implementation would have been taken and it could not be reversed anymore.
Right.
However, then, of course, government fell early and the final decision was not taken and we had to leave it again. So your timing is right in many aspects and needs to be right. And your communication, both to the public and your political strategy, they need to be top-notch. Otherwise, if you want to introduce it for light vehicles, well, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, the common strategy is interesting. Everyone has said common strategy, which of course is what I do. So that's nice to know. Last question I'm going to ask you then. So obviously you've worked in the road user charging sector for a long time. We've discussed that. But when you see other projects coming and going, do you see things that inspire you to do things differently? Do you see things that you think that's never going to work? That's not a name project particularly, but how do you go about doing your consultancy? Is it your way, or do you see other things that you take inspiration from and build sort of maybe bespoke solutions for each project you work on?
Well, I think I touched on a number of those things already, and the timing of your plans, the political situation you have, the communication, those are most important. And I must say that those notions differ from what in general one thought 20 years ago, because then they said, well, we take a political decision and then we have some budget and then we have some project leaders and we will just implement it. And well, to a certain extent that has worked for heavy goods vehicles projects, but not always. Some of the problems for light vehicles also emerged there. But the notion that you need to have a solid strategy, and in the solid strategy also one of the points is that you need, when you commit a project, you also need to have a strategy for exit, because otherwise in 10 years' time you will be held hostage by the incumbent, which we have seen all the time in Europe and some other countries as well.
True.
So those are things that I think we have learned over the past 20 years or so, which were not been seen so prominently like 20 years ago, when they thought it is something technical and something budgetary. But those other items, they in practice have shown to be more important.
Okay. Excellent. Jan, Willem, thanks for your time. Really appreciate that. You can find out more about the Spruce Network. There is text under this link to this broadcast. You can find out more. You can look at the LinkedIn. There isn't a website. Deliberately, no website. There will be no Spruce website, everybody. But you can find out individually. There's a LinkedIn page, and everyone has their own LinkedIn pages. We'll link that. Everything will be available for you to find out more about the organisation. In the meantime, Jan, Willem, Tierolf, thank you very much indeed. Join me again for episode 5. Thanks.